Hello. Today I want to just go through a couple of things and then I'm going to give you some time to work on your homework. We're going to have two ed puzzles today. One of them is um, watching the dissection of the heart that I put together, and the other one is this, that if you are not attending a live session today, I want you to watch this one, obviously, which you wouldn't know if you weren't watching it. So anyway, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to continue to talk about the flow of blood through the entire systemic or the systemic system. So we looked earlier at blood flow through the coronary system, through the heart itself to feed the heart muscle. And then yesterday we talked about the flow of the blood through the heart itself. Well, now we're going to extend it a little bit further to the entire body. So one thing I want you to be aware of is that we start out with blood leaving from the aorta and traveling up towards all the tissues of our upper body through the ascending aorta and then down past the lower part of our body through the descending aorta. And that is going to branch off into smaller and smaller and smaller arteries to feed each and every tissue bed that we have in our body. So throughout our tissues, we have blood coming in through arterioles, which are the smallest of the arteries, and they branch into the capillary beds. So at the capillary beds, the blood cells are allowed to only go through one blood cell at a time, and that's really important for the red blood cells because then the oxygen that's in this oxygenated blood can diffuse into the tissue, and the carbon dioxide can diffuse into the vessels, into the capillaries themselves. So that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing it coming in red and all of the oxygenated blood jumping off and all of the, oxygen in the blood jumping off and then all of the carbon dioxide boarding. And so that's why we end up having the blue depiction of the capillaries, indicating that this is oxygen poor blood. So one of the things that I want you to remember is that we only have a certain amount of blood in our body. It's a closed system, and there are situations when you need more blood flow in one area than you do in another. And so we talked about that when we talked about homeostasis, that if you're running, your muscles need more oxygen because they're burning more glucose for energy. So how this is achieved, how it is that we can divert some of our blood flow to some places and away from others, is because of these pre-capillary sphincters. So a sphincter, remember, is a muscle that can open and close things. And so we have them in our capillary beds. And each of our tissues, no matter how much they're working, are going to need some blood flow. So if you are at rest, we would just have one main way to get through from in this capillary bed, going from oxygenated blood, and just to keep the tissue alive, we need some of the oxygen taking off and the carbon dioxide coming back in, and then this is going to go back to your heart. So the sphincters would cause it to go through just this one shunt. If you need more blood flow in that area, then we'd go back to this situation where the sphincters open, and then we can get more blood flow to all of the tissues. So that is how we locally control how much blood is in one particular tissue. Now, there's a diagram in your book and there's a diagram in the packet that if you never see it, it might be a little bit confusing. This I just copied from your packet or your worksheet today, but what it's showing is this in somewhat different detail. This is showing the lungs right here and right here, whereas this one has the lungs above. So this would be the capillary beds of the upper body. This would be the lungs. This would be your organs, and this would be your lower body capillaries. That's what this diagram is depicting. So it's showing here that the pulmonary arteries away are taking deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and then the pulmonary veins are bringing it back to the heart, and then the ventricle is contracting and oxygen-rich blood is pumped through the aorta, and it goes to all of the tissues. And when it's in the tissues, then it's going to be feeding the tissues that oxygen-rich blood and taking away the carbon dioxide, and that's going to go back up through the vena cavas and back into the atria. And then it'll start all over again. So this is the one that is in your packet. And so I just colored it so you could kind of see that. There's some shunting going on here, so that's kind of a mess. But basically, wherever you get to a capillary bed, the blood that's coming from the aorta is going to be full of oxygen, and the blood leaving that capillary bed is going to be oxygen poor. So let's look at what this is. Pulmonary pump. Pulmonary pump, that means that you're pumping to the lungs. So that is going to end up being right here, your right ventricle. And then systemic pump, that's going to your entire body, your system. So that's going to be your left ventricle. Pulmonary circulation, that's the circulation of the lungs themselves. So that's right here. Vessels serving the trunk and lower limbs, that's going to be down here. And vessels serving the head and the upper limbs, that's going to be depicted up here. And then the vessels serving the organs are going to be in the middle. So I just wanted to go through this one with you because I didn't want it to stump you. I wanted you to not look at it and go, what the heck is that? So I did that one for you. I still want you to do it when you get to your assignment, which is right here. So let's go through this assignment. The first is trace the blood flow through the pulmonary and systemic circulation. So that's 1 through 10. So this is going in order. So from the right atrium, blood flows through the tricuspid valve to so there's the right atrium. It's going past the valve to the blank. And so you're going to write that in there. So you're using this to finish the sentences. And then on the diagram, color the regions transporting oxygen poor blood and oxygen rich blood. That's what I just modeled for you. Then number 3, I also modeled this, labeling the regions. And then number 4, that's just putting the words in order. So the words that in order that they would go through. Okay, so the only other things that you need to do today is to make sure that you watch the Ed puzzle on the heart dissection, which is right here, and complete the worksheet that is right here. So I made a copy of it for you. And then this Ed puzzle will be attached, or you can attend the live meet tomorrow and I'll go over it again. I also reattached the cardiovascular system Quizlet. I added questions, so there's now 30 questions on there. So that should do it for the lesson for today. Happy Friday and have a good weekend.